All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most foundational stories ever told. Yeah, the very first day of creation from the book of Genesis. It's an incredible story about how our world went from total chaos to an ordered cosmos, and it all kicks off with one single powerful sentence.
So the story opens with this monumental statement. It really sets the stage for everything that's about to happen. But, the very next sentence describes a world that is honestly almost impossible for us to even imagine, a place completely different from the one we know.
Yeah, let's really dig into this, because this question, it's the key to unlocking the entire creation story. We're not just talking about an empty space here. We're talking about a state of total, primordial chaos just waiting for a purpose.
So what the text is telling us is that the initial state wasn't some peaceful, empty void. Not at all. It was chaotic, it was unorganized, and completely uninhabited. The narrative actually starts by presenting a problem that God is about to solve, a world that is just fundamentally unusable.
So what does all this mean? Well, when the text says the earth was without form, think no useful or meaningful shape. When it says empty, that's pretty straightforward. It was uninhabited, no life yet. And this darkness was covering the deep, which is described as this sort of watery raw material. So the focus here isn't necessarily on creation from absolutely nothing, but on the process of God bringing order, beauty, and goodness out of this pre-existing state of disorder. And this is where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just a bunch of random stuff happening. No way. The narrative lays out this incredibly organized, deliberate architectural plan for the entire cosmos. It all unfolds over 6 distinct days, with each day building on the last in this really logical, almost poetic way.
Now, check this out, because this is where a really cool pattern emerges. You can see this beautiful symmetry. The first 3 days are what we could call days of forming, where God creates these distinct realms. Day 1, light and darkness. Day 2, the sky and the seas. Day 3, dry land. Then, look at the next 3 days. They're the days of filling. He goes back and populates those very realms he just created. The sun, moon, and stars fill the day and night, birds and fish fill the sky and seas, and finally, animals and humans fill the land. It's just a masterpiece of structure.
So you might be wondering, how did God do all of this? It wasn't through, physical effort or some big struggle. The text reveals that the primary tool for creation was something way more powerful, something that shows ultimate wisdom and authority. The divine word itself.
There's a fancy theological term for this. It's called creation ex nihilo, which basically just means creation out of nothing. The idea is that God has this unique power to bring things into existence that didn't exist before, simply by speaking. Reality itself just conforms to his will. This establishes a really core idea about the immense nature of God's power, right from the get-go.
And it all comes down to these 3 little words. And God said. That's the trigger. That's the recurring command that brings forth reality throughout this entire chapter. It signifies a supreme authority where the very act of speaking is the act of creating.
So with that very first command, God tackles the biggest problem of this formless world head-on, the darkness. This isn't just about flipping a switch. It's an assertion of power over chaos. Light is presented as the first step, the prerequisite for everything else that's going to transform this void into a vibrant, living world.
And then, boom. And there was light. Just like that. It brilliantly shows the immediacy and the raw power of the divine word. There was no delay, no struggle, no long process. The command was given, and light simply was. It's a pure expression of will becoming reality, instantly.
And here's another first. God looks at the light and calls it good. This is huge. It's the first time anything is given a value judgment in the Bible. Before anything else, light is declared good. This recurring idea establishes a standard of goodness, of order, and of purpose right from the very beginning. The creation isn't just functional, it has an inherent moral quality to it.
Okay, so we have light, but creating it was really only half the battle, right? To make it useful, it had to be organized. Just having raw, undifferentiated light isn't enough to build a world on. So the next move is an act of separation and definition, turning a raw element into a functioning system.
And here's exactly how that order gets established. God separates the light from the darkness, and then, and this is so important, he gives them names, day and night. Now, naming something in this context isn't just giving it a label. It's an act of establishing authority and defining its function. By doing this, God created the fundamental rhythm of time that governs all life.
And this whole process establishes that famous cycle, and there was evening, and there was morning. This phrase concludes the work of day one. But it's not just a timestamp. It's the establishment of a rhythm, a template that's going to be repeated for the next 5 days, marking the steady, deliberate march of creation.
So let's just step back for a second. Why does day one matter so much? Well, the events of this first day aren't just item number 1 on a cosmic to-do list. They are the absolute bedrock for everything that follows.
I mean, think about it. It's the first victory of order over chaos. It introduces this mind-blowing idea of creation just by speaking. It establishes light and goodness as the foundational elements of the world. It literally creates the rhythm of time as we know it, and it sets the pattern for the entire rest of the creation story. It's the whole shebang right here on day one.
And that leaves us with a pretty deep question to chew on, doesn't it? The narrative presents these concepts not as afterthoughts, but as the first and most fundamental principles spoken into existence. So if order, goodness, and light were the very first things created out of chaos, what does that say about their essential nature? Something to think about. That's our explainer on the first day of creation. Thanks for tuning in.